Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 65, I do believe, May the 6th, 2017. And let's see, or is it the 7th? I think it's the 7th, it's Sunday. Yes, I believe it's May the 7th, 2017, day 65. Not a whole lot going on today specifically about TowerGate, but there's a few other issues I'm going to touch on. But there are just a couple things I want to follow up on. Obviously, we talked yesterday about the Rand Paul thing, and that is still making big news, still reverberating. So we'll see what happens with that. But like I said yesterday, Rand Paul, the wrong person to spy on. You can bet he's not going to let go of that. He wants some answers. He wants to know who did it, why they did it, when they did it, how they did it, where they did it. That should be a lot of fun watching that play out over the course of the week. And he has submitted in writing that he wants these answers, so he is not playing around. And I stumbled onto some conversation last night, and there was a guy on there who I think he's an attorney who was on a thread, and he was talking about the issue that Susan Rice really has. She is going to be brought in to testify. It may take a subpoena to get her there, but they will get her there. And there's a very good reason why Susan Rice doesn't want to show up for these hearings, because we know that she did the unmasking, and that in itself is not illegal. It just depends on how you did it and why you did it. And as we know, the original narrative was that it was incidental collection, and that's critical of whether or not this was incidental or whether it was targeted and political. And this is the problem that she has, because we still haven't heard Nunes. I mean, he hasn't said a word since he stepped down from that committee. But what has been rumored is that what he saw was unmasking of conversations that took place directly between members of Trump's team, possibly even Trump, between these individuals themselves. Now, keep in mind, when you're talking about this type of collection and this type of unmasking, this is supposed to be an American talking to a foreigner. But when you have two Americans, citizens, in conversation with one another, you're talking about a whole different standard. And that's where the problem is. If the unmasking was done on two Americans and there is no warrant or there is no reasonable suspicion that it had something to do with some sort of espionage or something criminal going on between what would normally happen between an American and a foreigner, then you have a problem. Unmasking two Americans without some really good reasons for that is a problem. And that's why Susan Rice doesn't want to testify, because they know that she did the unmasking, created the spreadsheets, and disseminated this information. And apparently that's what Nunes saw, was that this was not Americans and foreigners. It was not Americans and Russians, people in the Trump campaign and Russians. Yeah, there may have been some of that with Manafort or with, I don't think so much Stone. I think Stone's issue was he was talking to a third party that put him in between himself and Julian Assange of WikiLeaks. I think that's what the accusation was of Stone. And keep in mind, Manafort, Stone, and Carter Page are begging to testify in front of the Senate and House committees. Begging. They have actually all written letters saying, please call me to testify. I want to clear my name. But the Senate Intelligence Committee, and as far as we know, the House, they don't want to hear from those guys anymore. Oh, they wanted to hear from them, a couple months ago when their names first came up. Yeah, we got to get those guys in here and get them to testify. And once they all came forward and said, sure, I'd love to testify. Roger Stone has sent multiple letters to both of these committees saying, please call me. I'll be there whenever you want. Just let me know. I'll be there. So now they don't want to hear from them. I wonder why. But this apparently is what's going on with Susan Rice and why she's in a very difficult position. And it's because it's not so much she did the unmasking, which in itself is not illegal. It is why she did the unmasking, who she unmasked. And these are the things that they don't want to talk about. And as we learn more and more, as this story plays itself out, it is looking more and more like, if the rumors are true, and they're only rumors at this point, that this unmasking was done between people in Trump's campaign with one another and people around his campaign, and there were no foreigners involved. And that is a problem, and that's what she is going to have a problem with. We'll see if they do subpoena her. I expect that they will, and we'll see where all that goes. It's also funny, Trump made two tweets after Susan Rice announced that she would not be showing up to the Senate Intelligence Committee. And it's funny how that went off. She says in her attorney's letter that she didn't believe it will be a bipartisan thing, and she doesn't want to talk about surveillance and unmasking. She wants to talk about Russia-Trump collusion. So you can't have it both ways. You know, if you're going to go in front of that committee, yeah, they may talk about Russia collusion, which we know is a hoax, but certainly the Republicans, we would assume, on that committee are going to want to spend way more time talking to Susan Rice about her unmasking, and she knows it. She's guilty as hell, and this is where her problem is. And she may end up being the fall guy. She was used as the fall guy in Benghazi, kind of the useful idiot, and so we will find out. I think she's trying to twist and spin, but this deal about the bipartisan thing, if you look at what happened, is you had Lindsey Graham requesting Senator Rice. Then one of the ranking Democrats on the committee decided they didn't like the fact that Lindsey Graham, when Lindsey Graham had a conversation with this Democrat whose name I believe is Winehouse, when they found out that some of the questions Lindsey Graham wanted to talk about was the unmasking, this particular person said, well, if that's the case, then I'm just not going to show up for those hearings. And then he contacted Susan Rice and said, hey, they want to talk about this, this, and this, so I'm just not going to show up. And then based on that this Democrat volunteered to Susan Rice that he wasn't going to show up, then they put in a letter that, well, it's not going to be bipartisan because this particular Democrat is not going to be there. There would still be other Democrats there, but not this one. So that's one of the reasons. So you can see the extremes that she is going to try to avoid testifying, but it's not going to work. The only thing she's doing right now is buying time. She's buying time. Also, there is one thing that's popped up it's not necessarily new, but it's just more information that's coming out as far as Circa News, who you really have to credit Circa News. They are really doing a good job. They're probably digging into this harder than anybody. And this is the CEO of the company who's actually taking this particular action. I'm going to provide a link for you. The article appears in ZeroHedge. I will provide this link. But the summary of what the article is talking about says that Circa has officially, Circa has officially filed a request asking the Trump administration to declassify the frequency of Obama's unmasking request related to political opponents. These are the NSA requests under Section 702, which is the thing that has to do with Americans communicating with foreigners. That's what the 702 section thing is under the NSA. So this is what they want, and Circa already knows from the information that they have that they got from the ACLU lawyer, this Nima Giuliani, that there were 3,134 NSA intel reports that were that had unredacted names and were distributed across the government in 2016. And these requests were made directly by officials in the Obama administration. So keep in mind, the President of the United States has the authority to declassify documents. And they have been having a rough time. Circa has been having a rough time. Obviously, the ACLU had done these FOIA requests, and that's how they got this information. But a lot of the stuff that they get is unredacted or redacted. It's blacked out. Okay, so what Circa is wanting to have happen is to have the Trump administration use the authority they have to get these documents that have large sections of them blacked out. He wants these documents, Circa wants these documents without them being blacked out. That's essentially what they want, and they have officially filed that request with the Trump administration. I will provide the link for you. Now, there is there's a couple other issues I'm going to touch on not related to TowerGate. So that's pretty much the TowerGate news for today. But there's some other things I've been watching, I keep watching, and I just want to touch on just a few of them things because we got a little bit of extra time today because it's kind of a slow day. So, after a very busy day yesterday. But the first thing is, of course, the French elections. I've been watching the live stream this morning, but I got to get out and do some yard work, so I got to kind of get off it and get out there and get the weed eater fired up. So anyway, watching the French elections, we still don't know at this point. You know, it's not like here in the U.S. where they have exit polls and they give out information throughout the day. I guess they don't really release things until they have a final or pretty close to knowing what the vote's going to turn out like. So we don't really have any idea where that is. Now, as I've been saying, I think it's a very, very tough deal for Le Pen to win this, just because she's kind of on the right. In most of France, you have 4 parties on the left, 1 on the right. If these people who really didn't support Macron, the Mélenchon people, who he has not endorsed anybody, but his people are leftist, he's a socialist, they will probably lean more toward Macron. So I think the only chance I think that Le Pen has of winning is if she has a very high voter turnout and Macron has a very low voter turnout. I think this is the only way that she can win, but the odds are against her, but I wouldn't count her out at this point. But I do believe that whatever happens today, I do believe that Macron will not solve any of the problems they have with the migrant crisis or the problems they have with the EU or anything else. I think the EU is there's 4, 5, 6 countries now that are fighting the EU now on migrants and issues like that. So I think that the trend is the EU is still in a moving into a collapse position, and I think that it'll only accelerate. And I do believe that if there's anything left of France in 5 years, that if Marine Le Pen does not win, because remember, a president in France serves 5 years. If Macron wins, I think Le Pen will be a shoo-in in 5 years. Will there be anything left of France? I don't know. And of course, you know, I kind of like France. I visited there twice, and even though I had a bad experience there, and I shared this in a previous video, if you ever travel to France, specifically Paris, keep in mind that the hotels, if you go to these little Mall and Paul type hotels there, I imagine maybe not the big hotels, but we stayed in the Mall and Paul hotel. They closed the door. They locked the door at 1 o'clock, and you can't get in. So anyway, we paid for a hotel room this particular evening. Me and my friends, we went to Paris. We were going to stay the weekend there. And we went to a little north of the city of Paris, and we found like a sort of almost like a bed, what we would call here in these states, a bed and breakfast type thing. A little kind of Mall and Paul hotel, had about 8 rooms in it or whatever, and we paid a pretty good penny for these hotel rooms. And there were 4 of us, and we got 4 rooms, had 2 beds in each room. And of course, we went out partying. We went out partying, and so we get back to the hotel. It's about 2:30 in the morning, and after the most of the bars had closed, we get back to this little sort of Mall and Paul hotel, and we go to open the door, and the door is locked. And so we're like, well, damn, you know, we're pretty drunk. We're pretty drunk at this point. So anyway, we start knocking on the door. Bam, 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 bam. Finally, after about 10 minutes, the old innkeeper comes down, and he's wearing his like little nighty gown or whatever. He was an older man, French man. He comes down, he opens the door, and he's all mad, giving us all this French stuff. We can't tell what the hell he's saying, but he chews our ass for like 2 minutes, and then we're thinking he's going to let us in. No, he slams the door and locks it again, pulls the curtain, and flips us off. So we're like, okay. So we ended up sleeping in the train station on benches, and we got harassed a couple times by the French police. Had to explain to them that we got locked out of our hotel, and we had nowhere else to go. So we slept on benches in the train station that particular evening. Not a very good night's sleep. Got up the next morning. Once the place opened, we went back and got our stuff. And we didn't get our money back. He wouldn't give us our money back. He just showed us a rule written in French saying that they locked the door at 1 o'clock. So if you do decide to go partying in Paris, and you do hit one of these little hotels, be aware they close up at 1 o'clock. Okay, so that's my French story. Now, on some unrelated topics, there's a lot of things going on. As most of you know, Jeff Sessions hates Hillary Clinton. He was never very happy with the way the Benghazi hearings happened. He was never happy that Hillary wouldn't... she had a couple rules, quite a few rules before she would testify. One of those rules were, 2 of them rules actually, was that she would not want to be put under oath. And number 2, she didn't want the cameras on at the beginning of her hearing when they normally swear people in, because she didn't want it broadcast that she was refusing to go under oath, because they actually did make the request, that are you willing to go under oath, or we'd like to go under oath, in which case her attorney said no, she's not going to raise her right hand and go under oath. They didn't want this out. It was part of the agreement. So Hillary Clinton wasn't under oath. Jeff Sessions didn't like that very much. He also had many documents he requested, emails that they couldn't find or couldn't produce. They got emails that were redacted. And there was a particular series of emails that Jeff Sessions has never forgotten about. And it's a series of emails that they got that were heavily redacted, blacked out. And it dealt with the telephone calls that were made by Barack Obama to the presidents of Libya and Egypt following the attack, the September 11th attack in Benghazi. And it is believed or rumored that in those particular phone calls, Obama and possibly Hillary Clinton speaking to the leaders of Libya and Egypt made it clear that they were aware that it was a terrorist attack and not a video. And they believe that this is why that was blocked out. So Judicial Watch, which most of you people are familiar with, Tom Fitton at Judicial Watch, has ordered a federal judge who he went to, because he's got these documents as well through FOIA request, and they're blacked out as well. So he went to a federal judge, and now the federal judge has ordered the State Department to turn over these 8 paragraphs of redacted emails from HRC, Hillary Rodham Clinton, which will likely shed light on what the Obama administration knew about the Benghazi attack. It is the summary of calls between Obama, HRC, Hillary Rodham Clinton, and the presidents of Libya and Egypt that they're very interested in. And they believe that when they get these documents, as now the judge has ordered, it is going to show that those conversations were Obama and Hillary speaking with the presidents of Libya and Egypt and basically telling them, yeah, I mean, this was a terrorist attack. When they came out and sent Susan Rice out on all the media networks the following Sunday to say it was a video. And we all know it had nothing to do with the silly video. So this is a very interesting development. And Jeff Sessions has never forgotten about any of this. And he doesn't like Hillary. I mean, I think anybody that's paid attention knows that that's true. So I don't think Sessions is let off of Hillary yet. And so we're likely to find out more about that. Also, let's see. Also, Freedom Watch has obtained more emails through their FOIA request that likely came from Hillary Clinton's private server. And they are going to be sharing that information with the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, who is himself trying to dig back into this. Also, there's another issue going on, which some of you may have forgotten about. So, in other words, what I'm telling you here is that Sessions has not backed off of Hillary at all. He's behind the scenes. He is doing things. And one of the things that's happening now is that they are now going to, it looks like, prosecute or file criminal charges against the CEO of Platte River, who, of course, was the company that was housing Hillary Clinton's private emails. And it was this Paul Gambetta, Stone Tier, who bleach-bitted those emails. And the only reason that he's not in jail is because FBI Director Comey gave him immunity. But the guy who didn't get immunity was the CEO of this company, Trev Suezo. Now, he had been asked, not just asked, but he had been given subpoenas by the Congress to come in and testify. He refused to appear despite getting the subpoenas. Working through an attorney, he had refused to respond to those subpoenas. He has refused to produce documents. So now the DOJ is going to go ahead and prosecute this CEO, because he did not get immunity, for obstructing the investigation, failing to produce documents. The person who actually is launching this is Lamar Smith, who's the House Chairman of the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee. And again, he's stating to the document he gave to Attorney General Sessions to file a criminal suit against Mr. Suezo is again that he failed to produce key documents. He made false statements in his letters that he wrote, and of course obstructing the investigation. So Mr. Suezo does not have immunity, and he is now going to be facing, instead of coming in and speaking to the Congress and possibly getting immunity, he really screwed up. He should have did what his employee, Paul Gambetta, Stone Tier, did, and he probably wouldn't be facing this situation. But since he has refused to comply, they're now going to find him criminally negligible, and they are going to file legal charges against him, and he's in some trouble. The interesting thing will be to see whether Mr. Suezo, who was acting, and his excuse throughout the whole thing in his attorney's letters is he was acting on the orders of Hillary Clinton's lawyer. So apparently it was he was taking orders from Hillary Clinton's lawyer, who's a slickster, who's been with the Clintons for a very long time. So it looks like we are going to see some more movement there, and it'll be interesting to see if he falls on the sword for Hillary, because he could be looking at some jail time. The FBI, on another issue, the FBI has also found some new information. They have found a letter from Loretta Lynch to Hillary Clinton promising her protection from prosecution. The FBI now has in their custody, in their possession, a letter from Loretta Lynch to Hillary Clinton promising protection from prosecution. Also, it appears that WikiLeaks in the last day or so has released some information showing that Hillary's private server was hacked by the Chinese. And there was a statement made by the former Secretary of State Gates, who has acknowledged that they believed and had good information that led them to believe that Hillary Clinton's server was private server, illegal, unencrypted private server, was hacked by the Chinese, and that is in these WikiLeaks. Also, you're going to like this one. If you remember, about 2 or 3 months ago, when they appointed Tom Perez as the head of the DNC, I did a video shortly thereafter, and I said, well, if Tom Perez is going to be the head of the DNC, that tells us an awful lot. He is a Hillary Clinton goon. He is directly empowered by Hillary Rodham Clinton and the Clintons. And I said, you know, if Tom Perez is the new DNC chair, he is a operative of the Clintons. That tells you a great deal. We've also seen Hillary Clinton back out on the trail. She's now doing interviews, making speeches, and making excuses why she lost. She's also put together a new organization to collect money. That's right. And it's called The Resistance. So her new fundraising organization now is called The Resistance. Why is Hillary raising funds? Is it to run for mayor of New York? No, 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 no. Hillary Clinton has no interest in being mayor of New York. And she's got a new slogan, which she is now using, which is Onward Together. She is putting together a team. It is now being reported by the New York Post that sources, insiders close to Hillary Clinton, that she is now raising money and laying the groundwork for a run again in 2020. Just as I told you. And why would Hillary Clinton be the Democrats' choice in 2020? Well, when you're going up against a president who has a 50% approval rating or better, you're probably going to lose. So you throw up somebody for the victory lap, like the Republicans did with Bob Dole. So you roll out an old veteran who you know can't win, and you let him do a victory lap. And also because the fact of the matter is, the Democratic Party, the way they work, and to an extent the Republican Party as well, is the person that the establishment is going to get behind is the person who can raise the money. And of course, despite everything that we know about the Clintons, they still know how to raise money. And they now have an organization set up to do just that. So the money-raising organization's in place. She's putting together people on the ground. She's out doing speeches, out making excuses for why she lost. She's got Tom Perez, who will ensure that that this happens. Also, it is rumored that behind the scenes, she's got Neera Tanden laying the groundwork to go ahead and get in contact with any Democrats, such as Elizabeth Warren or anyone like that, who may be thinking about running in 2020, to let them know to back off. Back off. Hillary's going to be the guy in 2020, just as I told you. And again, It's hard to beat an incumbent if he's sitting at 50% in the polls, and it's very likely that Trump could be sitting around 50% in the polls. It will have a lot to do with the economy. People almost vote on the economy. If you have a sitting president with a good economy, he generally will have better than 50% approval ratings, and if that's the case, he will most likely, in all cases, be reelected. So it looks like Hillary's going to be back in 2020 for a victory lap. Now, this probably has a lot more to do with the Clintons needing to raise money than it does with her believing she can actually win. The Clintons are going to need to keep raising lots of money because that's the only thing that these people know how to do. That's what they do. That's all they've ever done. They just raise money. Either, and probably has a lot to do with the fact that Hillary Clinton knows her legal issues are not over. Because Jeff Sessions is digging into this stuff. I'm sure she has people on the inside telling her this. She knows that both she and Slick are going to be facing some legal expenses, which can run into the millions and millions of dollars. And they don't want to have to crack into their personal piggy bank, which is believed to be somewhere around $30 million. So it looks like Hillary Clinton raising money, probably more to defend herself against legal cases that she will be facing, but also because it looks like, as arrogant as she is, she believes that she lost the election because of James Comey and the Russians, and she does have the ability to raise $1 billion+ and it looks like that's what she's out there doing right now. Reported by the New York Post, Hillary Clinton running again in 2020. Unbelievable. So that is what we got today. Appreciate y'all tuning in, sharing the videos, subscribing to my videos. Love the comments. Have a lot of great commenters, and we occasionally even have a crazy person, but she's okay. We'll let her go. Alrighty, so appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good day. We'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. So that's what we got for today, day 65. Y'all have a good weekend, or what's left of it. Hopefully we'll have a Le Pen victory, but if not, we'll just keep chugging right along, right? Alrighty, you guys take care. Bye.